Hello friends, Tom Downey here for College Football Now, presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Time now for another one of our college football coaching hot boards. By the way, shout out Bernie on YouTube. You read our minds. You asked for a Clay Helton one. We were already in the process of making it. So USC and Clay Helton, things have not gone very well this season. They're coming off an ugly loss to Cal. They were up 14-0. Blew a 14-point lead. They lost 15-14. It's their first loss to Cal since 2003. They sit at 5-5 with games coming up against UCLA, which in reality is going to be UCLA's college football playoff championship game. It's the only game that matters to them the rest of the year. And then they go play Notre Dame. So in all likelihood, I think best case, you're looking at a 6-6 mark. That would be USC's worst record since 2001. That was Pete Carroll's first year. Now, although A.D. Lynn Swann has offered public support for Clay Helton, we know the vote of confidence doesn't really go all that far. And frankly, I think it's time to let go of Clay Helton. I don't think he's getting the job done. I don't think he was a good head coach hire at the time. It just seems like USC kind of stuck in there. Let's hire a USC guy away. But let me know if you want USC to keep Clay Helton. Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think he's got to go. Didn't like the hire at the time. So we'll take a look at 10 potential candidates. Some names already floating out there. Number 10, and I don't like this one. I'll make that clear at the very beginning here. Hue Jackson. Remember, it was way back when. I remember the message boards were kind of freaking out when, Clay Helton and then Hue Jackson got fired. And could it be a situation where Lynn Swann brings in Hue Jackson? Now remember, Hue Jackson from LA was the USC OC from 1997 to 2000. But this would be a classic USC hire, and in a bad way. They bring in a USC guy who, frankly, I don't want as a head coach. I don't even know if I want him on my staff at all, because time and time again, in every single stop, Hue Jackson tries to skirt the blame, avoid the repercussions, and blame it on anybody else. That is exactly what he would do at USC. I don't want him as a leader of young men on my program. Number 10, and I've seen some response that maybe this isn't the best fit, about KRIS Richard. Now again, this might be a little too close to a Clay Helton type hire. You bring in another guy who, I like him, he's done a great job for the Cowboys. I think he'd be a good college coach. He's only had a little bit of experience there as a GA under Pete Carroll, but it kind of falls into the, let's keep trying to chase the Pete Carroll era. Keep bringing in former assistants that coached and or played under Carroll. I think he'd be a great college coach, but I don't know if he'd necessarily be the right fit at this time for USC. All right, number 8, how about Matt Wells? Maybe not the most well-known name out there, and understandably so, but he's 43-33 in 6 years at Utah State. He's got them 9-1 this year. Legitimate question, I know it's USC, so I think the answer is yes, but he is a Utah State alumnus. Would he actually leave? And the big issue I've noticed overall for many of these USC options is that, unlike the SEC or even the Big Ten, the West Coast doesn't quite have the same number of promising young coaches maybe used to have in the past. Matt Wells, even though it is technically Utah, so maybe not truly a coastal coach, I think he'd be a decent fallback option. All right, number 7 is Matt Campbell. And in terms of young promising coaches, you're not going to find a better one right now than Matt Campbell. Kind of falls into that Tom Herman type category. The issue for Campbell and USC, I don't know if the fit is actually the best outcome there. He's definitely among the top coaching candidates in college football and frankly for the NFL as well. But he spent almost all of his career in Ohio. The furthest west he's been, it really is Iowa State. Is he a truly good fit for the Trojans? Now, I think he'd do a good job, but I think Campbell might have his eyes more towards the east, towards maybe an NFL job like the Browns, or even OSU if that job ends up coming open. So I think he'd be a good fit for USC, or a good success for USC. I just don't know if he's actually the ideal fit. All right, number 6, a guy we've seen a couple times, I think, in previous past when the USC job has kind of been open, Kyle Whittingham. Is born in California, did briefly play for the then LA Rams as a replacement squad player back in '87. But he's been at Utah since 1994. He's proven himself, and I think he'd be a good hire, but I think this might be a situation where maybe USC interviews him, maybe both sides kind of come away with, maybe not quite right now. Even though he's been there since 1994, I think USC is going to aim a little bit higher. All All right, number 5, one of the up-and-coming coaches. I'm not going to say him, coach, who's actually 57, believe it or not. That is Dino Babers out at Syracuse. Now, he's got the Orange at 8-2 this year. They've played really well. They can throw a wrench into the college football playoff championship title race here if they take down Notre Dame. But he has some ties to the West Coast, played at Hawaii, coached at Arizona State, coached at UCLA, coached at Arizona. Even though I think many view him as, oh, the Baylor guy, or the Syracuse and Bowling Green guy, he's really coached everywhere. Now, he's had a long career. He's already 57, despite really looking much younger than 57, by the way. But he's a good, sharp offensive mind. If USC misses out on some of their big-name potential targets, I think they could go look for a guy like Dino. Folks, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. What that means is, put down $100, they will give you $120 for free for a grand total of $220 to bet with on BetDSI. That is chatsports.com/bet. Promo code is LIVE120. Again, that gets you that 120% deposit bonus. Put down that $100. They will give you $120 for free for a grand total of $220 to bet with on BetDSI. You're playing with house money. All right, number 4 on the list here. This might be more of a fantasy pick, but we had to include him, right? How about Pete Carroll? This would be the dream for, I think, many USC fans out there. And there's been a little bit of buzz that maybe his time is winding down in Seattle. He is actually 67 years old. He was actually asked about it this weekend. After all, he was back in the Coliseum playing the Rams. He cut the reporter off and said he wasn't going to answer about that. So I think it's a long shot, but if Seattle misses the playoffs, maybe Pete Carroll wants to say, you know what, NFL, I'm tired of it. I'm going to go back to college for a couple years and then figure things out. I think it's a long shot. I think USC would pick up the phone and call because they seem very much tied to that Pete Carroll era. That's why he checks in at number 4. At number 3, and maybe the most likely outcome actually of all the top 3 candidates here, is Jack Del Rio. Remember, he played football and baseball at USC, and there's been some buzz out there that Del Rio is campaigning for the job and trying to set himself up in the event that USC fires Clay Helton. Now, I remember he was fired by the Raiders and hasn't coached at the collegiate level, but a former Trojan All-American linebacker, played baseball as well. A whole bunch of offers in the past for head coaching jobs never made JDR a truly legitimate candidate, but things have changed now. He was fired by the Oakland Raiders, and this strikes me in the end as a very typical USC hire. They keep it within the family, so to speak, and they bring in Jack Del Rio. It could work out. The coordinating hires, especially on offense, that would be the #1 thing for Del Rio. Don't count him out if USC does make a change and dump Clay Helton. All right, number 2 on the list, how about John Harbaugh? Now, he's on the hot seat with Baltimore. He could be replaced or mutually part ways at the end of the year, so he could be available. And go way back when Dan Patrick said that Harbaugh was high on USC's list in 2015. Now, he ended up sticking with Baltimore there. But again, much like Del Rio, things have changed now. He's available potentially. The one big issue for Harbaugh, I think USC would love to get him. NFL teams will want him. Maybe the Denver Broncos will go make out a hire for John Harbaugh, or the Browns, or the Cowboys potentially if those teams fire their head coaches. He hasn't coached in college since 1997. That is at least something to discuss and mention. I don't think it would be a deal breaker, but it is worth pointing out. By the way, if USC does hire John Harbaugh, you have to have USC Michigan every single year. Make it the Harbaugh Bowl, week 1 of the college football season, no matter what. Must-watch football. At number 1, and I think the guy that USC would most love to get, is KRIS Petersen. Has done a fantastic job as a college football head coach. Immense success at Boise State. Great success with Washington. He's done a fantastic job, and every time a notable, even some NFL jobs come open, KRIS Petersen's like, oh, can we go get him from Washington? Now, the big issue is that, yes, it's USC, and you have, in theory, everything that you want there out in LA, but let's not pretend like KRIS Petersen doesn't have a good gig right now at Washington. He's had success there. I think if you offered him, you could talk him into leaving, but remember, USC's had issues lately. That's the reality of the situation, and yeah, they've had some success sprinkled in there, some 10 and 11 win years, but really since Pete Carroll left, they haven't been the USC of old. Washington at least made it to a college football playoff game, so I think he would leave, but you never know with Chris Petersen. He's been very loyal to the spot he's had, Boise, Washington. For a guy like Chris Petersen, you would think he would have had other jobs beyond just those two in recent memory. All right, folks, to recap the top 10 USC head coach candidates: Hue Jackson, Chris Richard, some NFL guys that probably aren't the best fits, Matt Wells, Matt Campbell, Kyle Whittingham as well, other kind of fallback options. Dino Babber is at number 5, and then some of your more long shots potentially, or your ideal candidates. Pete Carroll would be great for USC fans, but that seems like a bit of a long shot right now. Jack Del Rio, I think, makes some sense. John Harbaugh, Chris Petersen, the big names that USC would target. The question is, would they get them? So, folks, I want to know from you here, who should USC hire if they fire Clay Helton? Let me know your names in the comment section. Feel free to go off the list of top 10 we provided, and I'll be sure to respond. And stay tuned, folks, as we get further along into the college football season. I'm sure we'll have some more college football coaching hot boards later on.